are emotions something we should ignore to an extent? You know, are they kind of holding us back? I mean, is there anything that we can learn from the emotions that we're creating, or should it just be a case of feel it and just do it anyway? Well,
Well,
obviously with an extent.
yeah, I think that emotions are important. I don't want to be dismissive of it, like, we're just like lumps of wood, unfeeling. I don't mean that. What I mean is we've got them way too high up the ladder of importance, and that they are important, but they're not everything. They're not. They're it's not where you should be basing your next act on. Like, oh, it just didn't feel right. You need to do a bit more thinking about that feeling. Now, there was something about, you got to define it. Like, what is it that's got you unsettled? You don't make a choice based on the outside chance that it was the cornflakes you had this morning. No, you got to define and do the thinking. And it's this kind of lazy cop out that we have, and look, I'm not saying this like I'm having a go at people. I'm people too. But it's this kind of lazy cop out that we have. We don't do the rigorous thinking. We don't hold ourselves to account. And you'll notice, look, and I would say this to all your listeners, the kind of feelings that I'm talking about, these aren't new ones for you. This isn't some like, oh, I've never been so afraid. It's the same bullshit. It's the same like, oh yeah, this is the same feeling I had when I was 17 and I meant to ask that girl out there, chicken duh. Or it's the same feeling I had when I was 22 and I went in that job interview and I puked up outside and blew the whole thing because I didn't want to go in. And it's the same feeling I had when I was 28 and my girlfriend chucked me. It was the same feeling. It's the same stuff that you're using. It's like, so that would tell you right there, I'm in some kind of pattern here. I'm trapped in some kind of cycle of automatic response to certain situations. I got to cause a breakthrough for myself here. I got to realize I'm going to get to a certain point with certain situations, and that old familiar experience is going to be there. Yeah, I'm going to step over it and I'm going to go right in anyway. Why? Because on the other side of that feeling is a whole new expression for me, is a whole new domain of success and accomplishment. And you don't get to do great things in your life without being racked by guilt, uncertainty, dread, fear, every negative emotion you can experience. When you take something big on in life, all that negative juice that exists within you will come gushing out, and then you'll have to act on it anyway.
I'm just saying, when you're talking about that, I was just thinking of the number of times where I've not, there's been a pattern and I've felt it and done it, or I've given up and then I've felt like shite, and it kind of, becomes its own self-repeating.
Right. Self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
It kind of blows you away when you stop and really go, oh. And then you start seeing each thing again and again. I mean, Brent Smith, who I interviewed, I think it was my second time, he was saying about how you just change your story. If you think you can't do that, just say, well, I can do that, and then just go do it.
Yeah.
But it's the action that you have to do as well. So how does it affect us by, the thoughts that we're thinking, how we speak to other people? Are there like phrases and ways of looking at things that we should stop doing to kind of help us?
Yeah. Look, if you stick to the philosophy that people like Martin Heidegger, Hans Georg Gadamer, Edmund Husserl, some of the German existentialists from the early part of the 20th century who did a lot of this work. I mean, there's a lot of people before them, but this was a big part of Sartre as well. I would say you're a creature of language, so as you speak, there you be. And the important part of that is, like, you got to start getting conscious of, aware of the kind of language you're using to capture life, because that's all language is doing. It's just capturing life. Like, a coffee cup is only a coffee cup because it captures the thing that a coffee cup is. Right? So there it is. And the words coffee cup capture that thing for me and such that I can interact with it. So if you look at like your life as language is like what you use to create the environment that you live in. So there's that thing, and I give that thing a name, and it exists for me in the paradigm of that name. And then that person, well, they've got a name and they've got certain characteristics which exist for me in language when I've looked at their behaviors and I've been able to categorize them. And then myself and a table and the fireplace and the door and the weather. And so all of these things have a certain kind of significance to them depending upon the language that I use, right? So if I, for instance, have got a project to do and I say, I'm going to try to do that project, I mean, it's already uphill. I'm going to try to do it. There is no trying. You're either going to do it or not do it. Are you doing it? Yeah, I'm doing that project. I'm doing that project is very different from I'm going to try and do that project. What we don't realize, it seems like these are just like subtleties that are relevant, No, there's a whole world that gets created when I say the phrase, I am going to try. It's very different from the world that gets created when I say, I am doing this now. That's very different. It puts me in two very different places. And so it would be important for you, for your listeners to say, well, what is the language I'm using to capture my life experience? Like I spoke to a lady this morning, and it was actually on a professional basis in terms of like she's a publicist. And, a lot of what I do, Ian, is if I hear something with somebody, I'm just going to tell them. I don't care whether I'm speaking to you standing in a supermarket, I'll tell you. So I said to her, what do you something about you, like you're really, I don't know, is it sad or disappointed? What's going on with you? And she was like, what? I said, what's going on with you? Like, what is it? Is it sadness or disappointment? A big long pause. Then she said, I'm sad. I said, okay, what about? And by the way, this is in the middle of us negotiating a deal for publicity for my book. I said, what are you sad about? She said, I lost my marriage this year. I said, where did you put it? She was like, what? I said, you said you lost it. Where did you put it? She said, well, I don't mean that, like it's over. I said, well, that's different. She said, how's it different? I said, one's a loss. And she really got it. She got like how she'd emotionally bedded herself in with the notion that she'd lost something, like a personal loss. And then all the emotional states associated with losing and losing something you wanted. Yeah, I mean, she's got one foot nailed to the floor. She's perpetually sad. And I said, you got to start taking the approach that my relationship ended, that it was unworkable, it wasn't working anymore, and it was time to end it. And then she really got in the conversation with, I spoke to her for about 25 minutes. She said, I really got to consider the idea of being in a relationship again. I said, exactly. So it's when people say they're stuck or they're unmovable, the only thing that's stuck is the way you talk about it. And by the way, I should add to that, and that's what impacts how you feel about it.